Sam Leavitt, Whit Weeks, and the LSU Tigers enter the 2026 college football season as national title contenders. This team's roster is as good as any in the country. They went out and got 3 top 10 transfer portal players. Jordan Seaton from Colorado, he comes over to be one of the best tackles in the country. I think he will be the best tackle in college football next year. They brought in Arizona State's quarterback, Sam Leavitt, the dual threat with a big arm, and I think he'll wind up being a first-round pick whenever he does enter the NFL draft. And they went out and got Ole Miss's best defensive player in Princewell Umamiela. Now, joins the ranks for LSU's pass rush. He's also a complete player that plays all downs. Look, Lane Kiffin, no doubt, is one of the most hated men in college football. But do LSU Tiger fans care? No, they without a doubt do not care because they just want to win football games. LSU, after winning the national title in 2019, has not sniffed the playoff. Last year, expectations were that if they were to beat Clemson, they would be well on their way to a playoff run. But that is not at all the way that this season went. They had an injury to their quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. He could not really throw the football downfield, and defensively, they were good, but I believe that this defense will simply be better. LSU's got a tough schedule. There's no doubt about it, but there are tougher SEC schedules, and the first half of the season lays out pretty favorably for them. Now, there are 2 big games in September in weeks 3 and 4, but after that, they've got a stretch of about 4 games where if they've only got 1 loss on the season, they very well can have themselves going into November in that matchup against Alabama. Always the first game of November that they're going to have, and it's going to be an absolute showdown with college football playoff hopes well within reach. I think they start off the season with a win against Clemson. Look, we're going to go through this schedule and talk about obviously the storylines and the expectations for this team and what's at stake for Lane Kiffin in year 1. Simply enough, you got to get this team to the playoff. That title team with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is the only college football playoff team that LSU has had. It's ridiculous that one of the premier programs in the country was only able to put together one incredible season, probably the best team in college football history by all accounts. But that's the only good year that they've had in the sense of being a dominant team. So Clemson stands in their way. Now, they lost some very good talent to the draft. And in the sense of their starting quarterback, Cade Klubnik, Avion Terrell, Peter Woods, TJ Parker. Now, Sammy Brown and Will Heldt remain. These are 2 first-round caliber players, but there's not a whole lot else on Clemson's defense that gives me reason to believe that LSU's not going to score at least 3 touchdowns in a winning effort. Now, last year, it took them a bit to put Clemson away. That game was close, and it was a very good game, but this is a statement opportunity to tell the college football world that we simply have a better roster than just about all of you. We've got a starting quarterback that is incredible, that's going to win us games and be the reason why we win games and not be a reason why we lose. And as much as we like Garrett Nussmeier, he was the reason why LSU lost a lot of games with his propensity to turn the football over in big moments. Now, this receiving core, it is completely different than it was a year ago. You've got Jace Brown, Jackson Harris, Winston Watkins coming in, Trey Brown, Eugene Wilson. It is spectacular how different this roster is, and Lane Kiffin going out and bringing in his guys. Now, one returning pass catcher is the guy, Trey'Dez Green. If he's not the best tight end in college football, he's number 2. 6'7". Doesn't matter if you've got 2 guys on him. He's going to go up and catch the football. He already leads LSU in their all-time touchdowns record for a tight end. And I think he could have double digits this season and utterly separate himself and be known as one of the best tight ends that this program has ever had. Now, week 2, after a win against Clemson, Louisiana Tech is no doubt going to be an opportunity to put momentum forward because you know what looms week 3. In Oxford against the Rebels. So a win against Louisiana Tech, but you want to see Sam Leavitt come out firing. This receiving core has questions on it, right? You're trying to figure out who's going to be the main weapon outside of Trey'Dez Green to push the football to, but besides Leavitt, this run game was terrible last year. It was awful. They could not get anything consistent rolling. And when you've got a good defense, you have to let them catch their breath for them to be on the sideline and be able to go out on the field where they can have a bit more energy. And that was not the case last year. And so you hurt your defense. The first game that comes to mind is A&M. You've got a lead, I believe, at halftime. They're up by, 3-4 in that game? And the second half, you just have nothing on offense. So a 2-0 start to the year out of conference, and then it's Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss. And Suntarian Perkins stayed. Will Eccles stayed. This is a very tough front four. But you know who left? TJ Daugherty, the Rebels' leading tackler last year. He left with Lane Kiffin, said, yeah, I want to go play for them. Pete Golding is now the head man at Ole Miss. This is one of the best 5 games in college football next year. It's obvious to me that not both of these teams are going to be in the playoff next year when you have these kinds of matchups. Last year, it felt like what's interesting is the loser of actually Clemson and LSU would not be in the playoff, just the way the schedule worked for both those teams. But there's a limit. You know, you've got A&M the following week also for LSU. The way that the SEC works is you can have 4 or 5 teams make the playoff, but on the stretch of that schedule, it is full cannibalization where the conference is eating itself, where its best teams are slated to go up against each other, and that's evidenced by the Tigers playing Texas later on in the season. So playing the best of the best in this conference, so the only team that you don't go up against is Georgia. But I've got to win on the road. I like LSU's defense more. Them without Prince Will Umamielen, let's say Umamielen stayed and Daugherty stayed, I think that that's enough on the Ole Miss side to sway it for me. Trinidad Chambliss, in my opinion, is not quite the the NFL prospect that Leavitt is. He's bigger. He's got a bigger arm. Mobility-wise, I believe that people would be surprised actually how similar they are. Athletic profile. I mean, if I had a kid, I would want them to play like Sam Leavitt and have every single trait that he has. This kid is tough. He dealt with the injuries last year, but this kid's a winner, and he did that at Arizona State when he was healthy. There's a reason why they were able to beat Texas Tech last year. So after a win against Ole Miss in one of the most anticipated games in quite some time, it's A&M at home. And if you're able to pull off this win against A&M, get your revenge on Marcel Reed. Look at what's to come. McNeese, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Auburn. You are facing off against 3 of the worst 4 or 5 teams in the Southeast Conference next year. You legitimately can. What's in front of you if you beat A&M? I'm not going to say stamp your ticket to the college football playoff, but you're darn close. Because 10-2 gets you in. 10-2, you're a playoff team. And you look like you would go right through the month of October with 4 wins. And even if you went 2-2 in that stretch of Bama, Texas, Tennessee, and Arkansas, you finish the year 10-2, you're a playoff team. So that's at stake against A&M. Clearly, you could have a loss and it'll be fine. You could still wind up being a team that competes for the SEC title or a team that competes for a playoff spot. But undefeated is where it's like, all right, LSU is not just a potential team that gets in the playoff, maybe wins a game, but this team can actually win the whole thing, especially if you beat Ole Miss on the road and they were just in the semifinal and they were pretty dang close to knocking off Miami and the Rebels playing for a national title. So A&M, they pose challenges. Marcel Reed's ability to push the ball downfield. It's actually really interesting to me how similar these matchups are because Trinidad Chambliss and Marcel Reed are very similar quarterbacks. You know, neither guy is very big. They're very mobile. They have good arm talent, but not really good. You're not on that upper echelon. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're probably in that high 6s category, not quite a 7, maybe a 7 at the most, whereas Sam Leavitt's a straight 9. I'd give him an A for arm talent-wise. But I think LSU beats A&M. Maybe I'm a little bit more confident and up on this team than even their fans. And they're like, I got to wait and see how we look against Clemson, or I got to see how we look against Ole Miss. But folks, Jordan Seaton on the left side of this offensive line, solidifying it at left tackle. He will protect the blind side for Leavitt, and it can keep him healthy. And this run game. Now, I would say that my biggest question mark about LSU next season simply is the run game, because I've seen enough from Sam Leavitt. Even if people are questioning his ability, he was playing in the Big 12. It's so different coming into the Southeast Conference. Like, that's a valid conversation, but you know the biggest factor that will help Sam Leavitt be the same guy? It's having a run game. It's being protected. Harlem Berry had 500 yards last year, and you brought in Dylan Jones. So the running back production is not great. Obviously, Caden Durham is a well-known commodity, had 750 yards in 24, and last season was really limited. But this is a three-headed monster that the Tigers have, or you can have somebody fresh. And I love that element. The era of having one incredible back like Adrian Peterson, not going to say no to an Adrian Peterson or a Reggie Bush or a Saquon Barkley, but having multiple backs, the Buckeyes, the Wolverines, Indiana, each of those three teams had two guys, right? Kalen Block and Hemby, Judkins and Henderson. The blueprint has been shown having multiple guys in a rotation. So after beating A&M, simply I believe that you beat A&M on the front of shutting down Mario Craver, force Marcel Reed to hold on to the football. You've got this talented linebacker duo. I mean, Whit Weeks and TJ Daugherty, that's the best linebacker duo in college football at the inside linebacker spot. I can't name a better one off the top of my head or taking time to think about it. That is an excellent duo of guys. Deshaun Spears takes over in that star position. But after that win, like I said, I think that they lay waste. McNeese win by a big margin at Kentucky and Will Stein. That's an evisceration, scoring 40-plus points in each. Mississippi State on the Bulldogs, dropping 40 on them. Also, at Auburn is interesting with Byron Brown. They've got Keyshawn Singleton. That's an interesting game, no doubt, against the Tigers. But Alex Golish's squad does not stack up. There's no Cam Coleman there. Last year they had Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman, and this year they've got neither of those guys. That's just unfortunate for the wide receiver room. They had a top 5 duo last year. So an 8-0 Tigers team, or, we could see 7-1. 8-0 or 7-1, but you need to be one of those two records. If you're 6-2 before that Bama and Texas stretch, and then at Tennessee, that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask for Sam Leavitt in this conference, playing those 3 games. And it's back, right? It's the 7th, the 14th, the 21st. But if you've only got one loss, I think they beat Bama no matter what the record is, even if they were 6-2, 7-1, no matter what. I like Leavitt better than whoever Bama trots out at quarterback in Mack or Russell. And Alabama did improve on the defensive line. Yanze Pierre is a mother, man. That dude that's a bad kid. He's an incredible talent. But in the back ends of this LSU defense, you do have really fun options, right? DJ Pickett, Tamarcus Cooley, PJ Woodland, but more specifically the main guy, the senior transfer in Ty Benefield from Boise State. Benefield is a thumper. He had something like 70 tackles, I want to say, last year. A number of passes defended. This is a guy that brings quality to your room. You had Mansour Delane last year. You were set with a shutdown guy, but that was the main option there, and it was a good secondary. Well, let's be honest, it was a good LSU defense, but the offense wore down the defense because they had to be out on the field so often. But I'm going to go with LSU to beat Bama. And you were in that game last year. It was relatively competitive, but you just couldn't produce any offense. Ty Simpson looked awful for a lot of that game. The following week, it's Texas at home. It's Arch Manning. It's Colin Simmons. Both those guys could go in the top 5. It's Cam Coleman. He could go in the top 10. Trevor Gooseby, in my opinion, would be the second best offensive tackle in the country, right behind Jordan Seaton. He's probably up there if he's not right at number 2. This is a fascinating matchup, and it could be an SEC title game preview. It could be a college football playoff matchup. But in my opinion, these are two of the best three teams in the conference next season. I would throw Georgia as the third best team next season. Those are my real quality teams. I'm a little bit lower on Bama, on Ole Miss, on A&M. I could definitely see all three of those teams made the playoff last year. I could wind up seeing only one of those making it, and a lot of that could have to do with the presence of the LSU Tigers going in there and mowing down those squads, right? Playing up against Ole Miss, A&M, Bama, three playoff teams. That's where people are like, man, this schedule could be brutal, but you're looking at different rosters, and LSU's composition is much different. I think Texas beats LSU in a classic. You know, we're talking 30-27, down to the wire, late field goal, and LSU proves to the country that this team maybe lost that game, but they are right there. They can compete with anybody. After that, it's Tennessee at Knoxville. It's Arkansas. Essentially, if you've only got one loss on the year, you know, you split those and you're in the playoff. Or if Texas was your second loss of the season, which is realistic, but I got to tell you, I think that it's as likely that the LSU Tigers go into that game against Texas with no losses as it is that they go in there with two. I simply think it's more likely that they're unbeaten going into that ninth game playing Texas as it is that they've got two on the season. That's how confident I am with their ability to put it together in year one with Lane Kiffin. He did an incredible job with the Rebels. So Tennessee, I see no struggle there. Arkansas the following week, them neither. You know, Taylon Green, Mike Washington Jr. was a lot of fun for them. Brazel and Aguilar a year ago, but all those guys leave and they move on, whereas LSU, it's just a composition of a better team than they were a season ago, and the coaching should be spectacular. Lane Kiffin will galvanize and bring this squad together, whereas Brian Kelly but was tearing it apart from the inside. It just did not seem like a fit from the get-go there. So I'm going to say 11-1 for the LSU Tigers. I could see 10-2, but I do see a college football playoff team. And as we went through it, very likely here, it's simple enough. Bama, Texas, Ole Miss, A&M, you got to go 2-2 at the least in those games, but I had them going 3-1, and you do that, there's a possibility that you're playing in the SEC title game, which means you would be in the playoff, or you would get a home game. I mean, an LSU home game in the first round of the college football playoff. Tigers fans would be elated about that, and I see it as a very likely possibility. That probably would be my prediction, is that they get something like the 6th seed and they host in the first round of the playoff. So thank you so much for watching. This is Blitz with Blender. My name is Josh Blender. I make college and NFL content every single day, but we will be previewing a lot of these games. Fired up. We went through it a little bit, did a little bit of a preview of the matchups. We talked about this roster, which we're fired up about. But if you have not subscribed, please make sure to do so. Excited about this upcoming season and this team specifically. College football is just better when the Tigers are right there near the top of the sport. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Appreciate you. Best player in college football. That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender. To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.